morning. Let's stand together. Let's declare the greatness of God working in us and through us this morning. Come on. Chains are gone. Been for
The Spirit was moving over the water. Spirit, come move over us. Come rest on us. Come rest on us. Come down. Spirit, when you move, you make my heart pound. When you fill the room, you're here and I know you are moving. I'm here and I know you will fill me. Come down. Spirit, when you move, you make my heart pound. When you fill the room, you're here and I know you are moving. I'm here and I know you will fill me.
Well, welcome you guys. You guys can take a seat for just a moment here. I just want to welcome those of you who are first time people here today, or maybe you're newish. And if you are, you'll notice a wonderful looking, there he is. There he goes. It's just like a throwback to Windows 98. Is it Windows 98? That's when they started doing all that kind of wonderful stuff. Anyways, if you have a chance, if you're new or newer to our church here, you can scan that wonderful QR code there that's bouncing around, and it'll take you a link to a website where you can fill in who you are. We want to know who you are. We want to know that you're here, and we want to better help get you plugged into the life here at the church. So if you could do that at some point today, that would be awesome. It's also a place where you can go if you need prayer. We are a church that believes in prayer, and we would love to walk alongside you in whatever you're going through. Maybe it's you're going through some hard times and you need someone to partner with you in prayer, or maybe you want to celebrate something. We want to celebrate with you as well. So take some time for that this morning if you need that. You know, as we draw closer to Good Friday, to Easter, I've been thinking about how God has this way of coming into view, and then also seemingly has this way of disappearing sometimes in our life. And it's almost as though he has a habit of hiding in places. A lot of times it's those same places because he wants us to know where to find him. You know, as we receive communion, we do that once a month at the beginning of the month. He's hiding out in the bread and the wine and symbol and sign. And he hides out in the silence. He hides out in the stillness. He hides out in gardens. You know, you hearken back to book of Genesis, and how he has a way of pulling back from Adam and Eve. And he hides out in hunger. He hides out in prisons. He hides out in poverty. He hides out in song. And it's not just for him hiding out for the sake of hiding out, but I think he's inviting us to something, and that is to seek him, to find him. And this morning, as we move forward in this time, may we be intentional about finding him in those places where he's seemingly not there. Though he is, he wants us to find him. So in our stillness, in our hearts this morning, in this song, may we seek to find him. Let's stand together.
And know that the Lord is in control. Be still, my soul. Stand and watch as giants fall. I won't be afraid. You are here. You silence all my fear. I won't be afraid. You don't let go. Be still my heart and know I won't be Be still and trust what the Lord
Bring your word, every cause you have forsaken, lay it all down, lay it all down. When your cares have buried you, there's nothing left but to do. Lay it all down, lay it all down at the feet of Jesus. At the feet of Jesus. Carried on, your heart was still. Fear the worst and felt the fire. Lay it all down. Lay it all down. Filled with all those anxious thoughts. All your doubts became your God. Lay it all down. Lay it all down at the feet of Jesus. At the feet of Jesus. Lay it all down, lay it all down, lay it all down, lay it all down. Lay it all down, lay it all down, lay it all down, lay it all down. Lay it all down, lay it all down, lay it all down, lay it all down at the feet of Jesus. At the feet of Jesus. Giving up on better days. There are memories we can't erase. Lay it all down. Lay it all down. Come to fear what we can't explain. There's nothing here that can ease the pain. Lay it all down. Lay it all down at the feet of Jesus. At the feet
what goes around comes around. You heard that? What goes around comes around. But my question for you this morning is this: what happens when it doesn't come back around, or the wrong thing comes back around? What happens when you do a good thing and you expect a good coming back to you and it doesn't come back around? Or maybe this, there's someone in your life who has done something bad or painful and it hurt you, and they need to get what's theirs, and they've done the bad thing, and what's supposed to come to them does not come back around to them. You been there? Or even worse is this, is when someone else does the bad thing and the bad thing comes back around to you. That's hard. So what do we do when what goes around doesn't come back around? This happened this past Monday morning in my house. Every Monday and every morning is difficult in the Thompson home. Imagine two little versions of me, a 9 and a 6-year-old, with my, let's call it, excitable and distractible personality, shall we? Yes. I've been clinically diagnosed. They have not yet, but let's be honest here. So we come down the stairs for our normal thing, and it's me, my 9-year-old Josiah, 6-year-old Noah, and then my amazing wife. We're going downstairs to get ready for the week. It's Monday morning, and when we come down, we find our amazing, sweet little puppy dog with something in his mouth, which is normal because we give him something to chew on overnight. But this is the first time that we've ever come down and seen our dog with a video game cartridge in his mouth. Not just any video game, it's for the Switch console, which for most of you that doesn't mean anything, and you should feel lucky about that. But for what you may need to know is that it wasn't just any video game, it was Minecraft. Half of you have no idea what that means. Your life is better without it. But for those of you who do know what it means, in Minecraft, my 9 and 6-year-old get to play God, where they create this own world, create their own universe, and they can literally invest hundreds of hours. Not that I'd let them, because I'm a good parent, but sorry, that's a bad joke. And in this moment, my 9-year-old looks at Finn, our dog, eating the hours that he's invested in creating his own little Minecraft world. And as Big Brother does, when you get angry and you don't like what's going on, what does Big Brother do? Blame little brother. If you're a second born, you know what that's like. So now Josiah's upset because his Minecraft world has disappeared. And now he's blaming little brother Noah. And Noah's like, how do you even know if I did it? Why do I always get blamed? And he's kind of like, I kind of deserve to always get blamed. But still, we don't know. It's possible that Josiah left it out, or mom left it out, or dad left it out, or the boogeyman left it out. How do you know it's me? Do you have video evidence of it? And so now he's upset because someone's upset at him. And the whole time, my wife is like, why are we caring about Minecraft? We've got to get to school. And why is Minecraft such a big deal? If our dog would have swallowed that, that could have been bad news for our dog. And at the same time, one has lost his video game world. One has been attacked. One is wondering what's going to happen if this keeps happening. And all of a sudden, I'm like, oh my gosh. And it's my job to get them to school on time. So I'm like, hey, let it go, don't worry. Get your shoes on, get your stuff, and just go to school. And the entire walk to school, which is not far, I literally live 3 blocks from my school, door to door. But that entire 3 blocks, you would not imagine how many times someone could kick, punch, threaten, whine, or complain to the other one, to which I just wanted to like, boys, let it go. And they just can't let it go. And so I drop it off. I said to the vice principal, your problem now, Mr. Prestige. And I walk back, and I'm like, what is wrong with them? Why can't they just let it go? And right as I'm getting to the end of that 3-block walk, I realize it's not just them who can't let it go. I can't let it go. It's not just Josiah who's upset that his world's been destroyed. It's not just Noah who's feeling like, why is the little brother always the brunt of it? But also it's my wife being like, what is the fair and reasonable consequence for someone leaving a video game out to be chewed on by that, right? You can't just pay for that video game because you don't get the hours back. And we don't really know who it is. So how do we give the right consequence? And as parents, we want there to be a sense of fairness and justice in this world. And so we want to help make it right. But at the same time, we can't just go and pay for this video game, because then they're not going to learn their lesson. And in that moment, I realized, shoot, I've been asking these kids to let it go, and here I am realizing I can't let it go. You been there? Maybe it wasn't a video game, maybe it wasn't Minecraft, but maybe, just maybe, someone did something to you, and somehow, some way, it's just you want to let it go, but you just can't. And you can't because when they walk in the room, you're like, ooh, you feel that feeling in your gut. When someone talks about them, you don't just feel it in your gut, it comes up to your heart, and there's this rage, there's this anger, there's this I just want them to get what's theirs. I need justice, I need what goes around to come around. Or it's this, if maybe you've been there, it's not just in your gut, it's not just there, it's made it all the way up to your head, and what you've done is you've rehearsed over and over and over and over and over what you would say to them if you got the chance. You been there? And in that moment, you're like, why can't I just let this go? I don't know why. Maybe the thing you've got to let go of is something someone did to you, but for many of us, it's not that. For many of us, it's what someone didn't do to us. It's the way a boss, a parent, a church member, a pastor was supposed to treat us, and they didn't, and we can't get past the way it should have happened and didn't. You been there? Some of us, it's not a person, what they did or didn't do. Sometimes we look in the mirror and look at the thing that we've done, and we just can't let go the mistake that we've made. Or even worse, even harder, this is the tricky one. When you look at God, and God didn't hold up his end of the deal, and things didn't go according to plan. And in that, you feel like God didn't hold up his end of the deal. And you're like, I can't let go of what God did or didn't do, what he allowed or didn't make happen. And I just can't let it go. Anyone else been there? You see, in this morning, what I want to tell you is as human beings, we all have these experiences where we get hurt, where we get wounded. I just had an amazing dinner last night, and someone said, oh my gosh, I love life, I love family, I love church, I love all these things, but then what happens is people get involved and it messes everything up. Because people are imperfect, at least I am, and I hope you've realized you are as well. And what happens is when we're in relationships, we get these hurts, we get these wounds, we get these scars, and we carry them. And some of them, we look at these things and they just seem like they're wounds that will never go away. And even though it's a little smaller, even though you can cover it up with your sleeve or whatever it may be, there's still that little pain. But others somehow not stay as wounds, but others become scars somehow. And you're like, oh, it's healed. Oh yeah, that's the thing that used to happen to me, but it doesn't hurt anymore. So the question is this. When you want to let it go and you can't, when you have this wound that you want to become a scar, but it just won't, what is it that can help us be free from that? What is it that can help us do the thing we want to do but are unable to do? Because maybe, just maybe, you're tired of rehearsing that conversation over and over of what you would say to that person. And maybe that person today isn't even alive, and it makes it even harder for you. What do you do when you have these wounds and they won't become scars because in some reason, some way, you just don't know how to let it go? This is the question that many humans ask, and this is something that is so close to the heart of Jesus. He has something to show you, to teach you, to empower you, and what I hope is that it transforms you, because it's the transformational way of Jesus. Let me show it to you. If you have your Bibles, go to Matthew chapter 6. We've been in 3 weeks of this series, we've been in this series since December, but we've been in this one prayer, the Lord's Prayer in Matthew chapter 6 for the last 3 weeks. This is gonna be the last week we take a look at it. So what we're gonna see here is Jesus has some insights that are life-changing. So let me just take a moment here as you flip there to Matthew chapter 6 in your device, on the screen, or in your Bible. I'm gonna read this prayer and we're gonna dig into this for a minute. Here we go. Matthew chapter 6, verse 9. This is Jesus teaching his followers. He said, this then is how you should pray. Maybe you've heard it before. Our Father in heaven, hallowed be your name. Your kingdom come, your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from the evil one. It's interesting, as Jesus recites this, or Jesus shares this, as people are listening to it, they're like, oh yeah, I've heard that before. For some of us, you may think that that's a prayer that Jesus made up. It's actually not. What I said 2 weeks ago as a teaser is this prayer is very similar to a prayer that Jewish folks would pray on the daily basis. It's called the Amidah prayer. Now, warning, if you go and Google Amidah prayer, what you're gonna see is it's evolved over the last 2,000 years, and so now it's an 18-part prayer. But this Amidah prayer is something they would pray every single day. It was a noonday prayer, and it was almost always done in community together. And so it's this, everybody knows this. This is like more popular than whatever, like the number one song on the radio or the number one most viral sensation. This is something that every single person knows. And they hear this prayer, and it seems like Jesus is repeating it, but there's one small difference that I want you to see. Let me first just start by reading you the Amidah prayer that they're all familiar with. It says this: Our Father in heaven, your name be holy. Sound familiar? May your kingdom come as we do your will on earth as it is in heaven. So far, so good. Give us this day give us today the bread of today. And the last part of it, and deliver us from the evil one. Cursed be he. Someone, well, Kyle, isn't that the exact same thing? Yes, the exact same thing, except for one piece is different. What is it? If you're going to put these two side by side and look at it, what is the one piece that Jesus adds here? Forgive us our debts as we have also forgiven our debtors. Essentially, he says there's this one piece that's going to revolutionize your spiritual life, your relationship with God, with others, and yourself. And there's this one significant change that Jesus makes. Why is this so significant? Let me unpack this for you. This is what we're going to spend our time dealing with. You see, let me explain why I think this is so revolutionary 2,000 years ago and just as revolutionary today, even though we may take it for granted. A few years ago, when I was a youth pastor, I was working with a group of high school students. And at the beginning of one of our small groups, we asked this question to our students. We said, would you rather live by karma or by grace? Would you rather live by karma or grace? To which they said, actually, I like both of those, but what do they mean? I said, that's great. Karma is this idea that what goes around comes around. When you do good, good comes back. When you do bad, bad comes back. When others do good, good comes back to them. When others do bad, bad comes back to them. And essentially is you get and you earn what you deserve. And that's the idea of karma. What goes around comes around. When you mistreat someone, that person may not mistreat you, but someone else will. When you are generous out there, somehow it comes back to you. Karma. Versus grace. Grace is this idea that somehow, some way, you get what you don't deserve. That God loves you so much, he says, I've loved you so much, I created you. You didn't deserve it. I loved you so much that I've chosen to adopt you into my family. If you want to be part of my family, you can be a son or a daughter of the king. And you haven't earned it, but I will adopt you in. And I love you and want to give you good things. This is grace. To which every single one of these seniors in high school looked at me and said, oh, we want karma. These are folks who have spent so much time working to get their resume and their scores perfect so that they can get into the right school. And when they get into that school, they want the narrative to be like, I earned and I deserved that. And if I find out that that person who was falling asleep or texting in the middle of chemistry or biology or doing whatever they were doing or not putting in the hours I was, when I find out that they get into the school that I want to and I don't, and somehow they get what they don't deserve, my life will feel worthless. And let's be honest, they said, think about the moral consequences. Think about people who hurt others. Don't we want Hitler and world dictators to be punished for it? Don't we want those who abuse vulnerable folks? Don't we want them to get what's coming to them? Shouldn't murderers have to pay the price? Why wouldn't we live by karma? But somehow Jesus says, no, there's this new thing called grace and forgiveness that defines what he does. Now, some of you may think about this. 2,000 years ago, he's talking to a group of religious folks, and I wonder if maybe, just maybe, these religious folks forgot that they were saved by grace and God continually forgives them, and they needed to be reminded of it. You see, grace was not a new concept for the Jewish people. Grace was where it all started. When God chose to create, when God chose Adam, when God rescued the Israelites from slavery in Egypt, when God chose to forgive over and over and over again, they have lived by grace, but somehow they've forgotten what saved them and how they live. And now, consciously or subconsciously, the Jewish folks like you and me started to live by karma. Friends, I want to stop here for a second. This is for those of you who have maybe been around religious circles, maybe you've been a follower of Jesus, maybe you've been to church many times. I just need to stop here and warn us here. There is this temptation that the more time you spend in any sort of religious system or institution, the more time you do this following Jesus, praying, learning, trying to figure out how to live the best life possible, it's possible that it gets twisted and perverted in you, that we live by karma, that it's about what I do for Jesus. And you spent so much time trying not to do that bad thing and trying to do that good thing. And that becomes the focus of your life. And in that, slowly but surely, you seep into this place that says, I want what I deserve. And I've done good things. I've worked hard. And in that, it creates a mentality that eats you up from the inside out. Do you want me to prove this to you? Those of you who are married, try and keep a scorecard of who's done the most. When you start doing this thing about who's done the most and given the most to the marriage and all that thing, when you live by a scorecard, I will tell you that'll be the beginning of the end of your marriage. Let me say this, for those of you who are employees and work with other folks, this idea that your work compensation and that people will treat you fairly, if that is your goal, to be treated fairly at work, you will live every day of your life frustrated. Because no matter what you do, other people won't see or appreciate it. And there will be other people in there, and what you will do is you'll look at the very best thing you do and the very worst thing they do, and you'll compare to each other, and you'll be like, oh. Or in this, you'll look at yourself in the mirror, and by karma, you'll say, I'm as good as the good actions I am. And every time you make a mistake, you'll beat yourself up over it. And in that, you'll think that your value is based on what you do. Friends, this is the scariest thing that we can do. Is move from a people who say, I've been chosen by God, loved by God, and I'm valuable because I'm a human being with breath in my lungs, and the image of God gives me my value, to who I am and what I do is earned and deserved by what I do and don't do. This is the radical reorientation. Kyle, that sounds fluffy and all. What does that actually mean? Well, let's look at what that means. If Jesus has this shift from karma to grace, or maybe we could say a re-emphasis of it, what does that actually mean and look like? Well, let's take a look at it. Verse 12. Verse 12, Jesus says, and forgive our debts as we have forgiven our debtors. Now, some translations forgive us our sins, forgive us our trespasses, but forgive us our debts, our obligations, the things we've done wrong, the way that you've given to us and we want to repay it. Forgive us as we have forgiven others. What does that word forgiven even mean, you may ask? This word forgiven is this Greek word aphiemi. Everyone pretend like you're really smart and educated. Say aphiemi with me, aphiemi. Oh, if you say it with more boldness, especially at our next small group, you're gonna sound super spiritual, and that karma thing, you're gonna feel real good. So let's just do it one more time. Say it with me, aphiemi. Oh yeah, don't you just feel smarter than you did when you walked in? And oftentimes it gets translated as forgive, and it should. But it's interesting. Look at the other ways it gets translated. To forgive is to depart from, to leave behind, or to let go. Whoa. Kyle, are you saying that in this new world of grace, when someone hurts me, I just have to let it go? Are you saying, Kyle, that what I should just be able to do is take this hurt that I've been carrying, let it go, and just leave it behind like it's nothing? Wait, Kyle, are you saying that when someone mistreats me, I should just continue to let it go and let that person continue to mistreat me? No, and no. So what does it mean? What does it look like to forgive and to let go? Imagine this. Imagine that person that's hurt you. You know that person who makes your gut turn every time you hear their name or they step into that room, the person you're rehearsing that speech for, or that person who you just don't think of anymore because in your mind, they are dead to me. Imagine that person. And it's come to light what they've done to you, what they've done to someone you love, what they've done to the world. And in that moment, they're actually put where they're supposed to be, and they are imprisoned for their offense. Their location and identity as a prisoner in prison is defined by what they've done. On them, they wear the title of what they have done. And every time you look at them, you see them, you remember what they've done. And for that moment, it feels so good because they finally get what they deserved. And when other people say this person's name, it's associated with they've done wrong. And now every time someone else does that thing to you that person did or didn't do, and you feel those emotions swelling up inside of you, you can go and look at them and say, you're the one who did this to me. And in this moment, I remember the words of Lewis B. Smedes, a theologian who said this. This is a picture of forgiveness. He says this: to forgive is to set a prisoner free and discover that the prisoner was you. To forgive is to set a prisoner free and remember and discover the prisoner was you. What you realize in this moment is all of this energy you spent towards this person in prison is something that you've done in yourself, in your heart, in your mind, in your guts towards that person. But can I tell you, in reality, that person's not in prison. In reality, that person isn't thinking about the thing they've done to you because either they're unaware of it, or what they've done is they're like, well, I've apologized or I've done what I can do. And they have let it go. They have departed. They have moved on. And now you're sitting there in prison looking at this person, and they're sitting on a beach somewhere sipping a famous or a nice little cocktail with a little umbrella in it, and their life is great while you're sitting there and you're really the one in prison. And forgiveness is not to say what they did is okay. Not at all. Forgiveness is not to say that there doesn't need to be justice. Not at all. But forgiveness is to realize that you are in prison to thoughts, feelings, behaviors, and patterns. And to forgive is for Jesus to give you the keys and say, you can come out of that prison of unforgiveness that lives inside of you and keeps you imprisoned, enslaved, and powerless. Well, Kyle, that sounds great. This karma thing, grace, okay, whatever. Being out of prison is awesome, but Kyle, it seems a whole lot harder than what you're saying. This idea of letting go is so much harder. And it is. That's where we started this morning. So let me tell you a story. In 2006 in Nickel Mines, Pennsylvania, a milkman, a milk delivery driver named Charles, wait, I'm missing his name. Anyway, let's call him Charles. I forget if that's his first or his last name. You give someone two first names, it's confusing. He goes, enters a school in Amish country, barricades himself in, takes the whole Amish schoolroom hostage, and opens fire, wounding 10 and killing 5 young Amish school children. Could you imagine? He's not one of the Amish folks, but he's part of that community. He's been part of that fabric. Could you imagine how moms and dads feel? Could you imagine what the teacher feels because the teacher actually was able to make it out? Could you imagine how the survivors feel? Could you imagine? I can't. I can't. And in this story became famous because what happened is after this happened, there was a fundraiser that was done. And the Amish folks led a fundraiser not for themselves, but a fundraiser for the family of the survivors. When Charles took his own life at the end, the Amish folks came to the graveside burial, not to celebrate his life, but to grieve and mourn with his widow and his 3 children, and to come and say, we forgive you. People got a hold of this story and said, this is crazy, it's nuts, can you fathom? And to be honest, I can't. But let me be clear, there are misunderstandings about this story. There's a man who's lived part of this community. His name is Jonas Beeler. Now, Jonas Beeler grew up Amish. He was part of this community. And what he realized is people had chosen to forgive, chosen to let go. They'd actually gone to the funeral. They've given back to this family. They've chosen to let it go, but in some way it still impacts them every single day. And he wanted to know why. Because he realized that was his life experience. The inability to let go, that was Jonas's experience. Why? He had a 19-month-old baby who suddenly died. And in that moment, he didn't know how to let that go. He didn't know to blame himself, his wife, God, or what. He wrestled with a marriage in which there was significant relational tension and trauma. Trying to learn how to forgive that person was incredibly hard. But even worse, he experienced hurt on the hands of his religious community, and he realized, how do I actually do this? Saying I forgive is easy, but actually doing it is hard. So this is what Jonas did. Jonas went and he wanted to learn and study forgiveness, and he went and he decided to go back to school to get a master's degree in counseling. Now, at this point, many folks in the Amish community were not big fans of mental health sciences, but he said, I'm gonna do it. Now, here's the thing. If you're Amish and you want to get a master's degree, there is no online school option for you. Okay, half of you got the joke. There is no way that you can take out debt and do it. So here's what he did. He started his own little business, a side hustle. He and his wife started a pretzel stand to pay for him to go through graduate school. He then went and started a counseling clinic, and he's gone on to write a book about forgiveness. Again, for the shooter, regarding his own child, his own marriage, and this. And this is what Jonas said. This is what he learned while selling pretzels. This is what he learned from tragedy. And this is what he's taken and given back to his community. Jonas says this. He says, you forgive because you cannot forget. You forgive to rid yourself of the poison that could rob you of every spiritual thing you've ever accomplished. In an interview, he goes on to say, you forgive yourself. You forget yourself. Let me say it this way. He says, forgiveness is for yourself. It's a selfish thing. You do it to release those that have hurt you so you can be free from them. He acknowledges that forgiveness is a process, and it doesn't mean that you'll never get angry about what happened or what has been done to you, but it's a journey. And when life hurts you, the healing becomes your journey. It does not happen all at once. In his book, Think No Evil, this is my favorite quote that he says. He says this, forgiveness is letting go of hope for a different past. Let that sink in, friends. Forgiveness is letting go of a hope for a different past. Man, I really hope that spouse would not have treated me that way. And gosh, I wish it would have been different. And I do too. Some of you have a childhood in which you look at your parents and say, man, I wish it would have been different. And I do too. Some of you wish you could go back and tell old version of yourself 10, 20 years ago to make different decisions, and you regret that you weren't there to tell that previous you, hey, there's a better way. And forgiveness is letting go of hope for a different past. And that's the only way to build a new future. It's an only way to let it go. And I don't know what your process will be. For Jonas, it was about making pretzels and getting a graduate degree. For others, it's realizing that it takes incredible amounts of time and work and healing. For some of you, it's this idea that I demand justice, as you should. We have been wired by a God of justice for justice. But sometimes letting go is not letting go of justice, but letting go of the belief that you can be the one who creates and follows through on justice. There are people who have hurt you and hurt those you love. And I'm sorry to say there's nothing you can do to go back and change that. Does that mean that person gets off scot-free? So should I just have grace and hope that, no. But in this moment, it's where you realize that I'm not God and I can't do it, but there's a God who loves me, who hurts with me, and he's a God of justice. And in some way, in a way that I can't fathom, Jesus is the one who will see to justice for that person. And I will not be God. I will not try to be God. I will not try to do it, but I believe that there's a just God who gives the appropriate consequence to those who deserve it. Letting go of the need to be God and demand justice for yourself. So let me ask you this. What do you need to let go of? Is it a thought? Is it a feeling? Is it a story you tell yourself? Because Jesus sure seems to think that this is life-changing, so much so that he doubles down and articulates it in the face of a religious culture that just teaches what goes around comes around. Why is it transformative? I want you to think about this. I said this earlier. Every single one of us, by interacting with human beings, we're gonna get hurt. There's gonna be wounds that caused by people who betray us, who don't do what they're supposed to do, who don't realize the impact they've had, and it seems as though they go off scot-free. And in these moments, our heart carries these wounds, our bodies carry the pain, and we live it every day. There's something that's broken in you, and every time you take a step, it'll remind you of the pain. Every time you have to do that certain movement or be in that interaction, you're reliving this, and you remember that it's a wound. And let me just tell you, we will all have wounds, period. But here's your choice. Here's your choice in the way of Jesus, is to choose this, is to choose to believe that my wounds can become scars. Kyle, what does that mean? I have this scar right here, 18 stitches from my brother pushing me into a coffee table. I can sit here in front of a few hundred people and tell stories about it, and I get it, does nothing to me. But there's times when there's wounds that you even touch it. I bet you've had a wound that hurt so bad that someone went to go touch it, to bring care to it, to put a Band-Aid on it, and it would hurt so much that literally before they even touch you, whoa! That's the power of a wound. And for your wound to be healed, I don't know what it takes, but let me just hypothesize with you. For some of you, that wound has been there so long, it's become infected and actually made it worse. And now, leaving the poison of bitterness, rage, and resentment in there, it has now got infected and become worse. And what you need is to have the poison removed, and you need to have a supernatural antidote of the love and grace of God that will come in and chase and defeat that poison inside of you from the inside out. For some of you friends, what it actually takes is for you to stop saying, oh, it's not that big of a deal. And everyone's like, well, they stopped saying that. It's not that big of a deal, and actually go to a doctor and stop and say, hey, can you sew this up? Oh, I know that sewing it up is gonna hurt, but I know that long-term it'll be better because this will become a scar and it won't have power over me anymore. Some of you need to do the work and it will hurt and it'll be slow. Some of you have a wound that's so deep. It's like a broken bone or even a broken femur. Your femur is your strongest bone in the body. But if that breaks, what has to happen? You have to be shut down, immobilized for a season. Why? So that you can allow it to heal. You may not be able to see it, but you can feel it. And you've just chosen to walk, thinking I'm strong enough. And the pain never goes away. And maybe, just maybe, for you to let go, for it to go from being a wound to a scar, you have to stop and say, God, I need a different way forward. So friends, what does it mean and look like for you to let it go? I don't know what the process is. I don't know what kind of prayer or therapy or confession. I don't know if there's confrontation of this person. I don't know if there's the acceptance that you'll never be able to have that conversation with the person. I don't know what it is, but here's where I know it starts. People ask Jonas, how could you forgive? How could you forgive all of these things one after another? And he says this. He says, I was forgiven by Jesus, so how could I not forgive others? You see, friends, if you're a follower of Jesus, what you believe is that you've sinned against God and he has chosen to forgive you. And that is the most life-changing transformation in a relationship you can ever have. And to be a follower of Jesus means you follow in his ways. So let me ask you this, friends. Do you want to be free or do you want to hold on? Do you want to let go or do you want this thing to continue to hold on to your heart? When you look down at that thing that hurts, will you allow God to heal it so it can become a scar? So that one day you can tell the story without it hurting, without wincing, without shame or embarrassment, because you've been healed. In this moment, I just want to name that it's so easy to say and hard to do. I get that. I don't know what you've gone through. I don't know the story. I don't know the process of forgiveness moving forward. But if you're open to it, I'd like to invite you to start now. I want to invite you to close your eyes, take a deep breath, let your back sit back in your chair, let your legs feel the bottom of the chair supporting you, your feet on the ground as you take a breath. And as part of this journey, I want you to imagine that jail cell. But instead of imagining that person who hurt you, I want you to imagine yourself sitting in that jail cell, on the bed, looking at those bars, totally imprisoned. As you're there, you look down at your own body and you see the wounds and the scars from folks who have hurt you. Some that have healed and some that still cause pain. And as you look and feel and remember, you hear the jingling of keys coming down that way. You've heard it 1,000,000 times. But this time, it ends different. Not with the sound of keys walking by you, but by coming direct towards you. It stops, the jingle through those keys. And in that moment, you look up and you see Jesus putting the key into the lock. You hear the click, and he opens the door. In this moment, you don't know what to do. So he steps in towards you. As you look up from your pain and your wounds, you look up and you see Jesus. You see that wound that you had on your heart, and you look at Jesus. Oh, you've got one just like it. You see that scar on your body, and you look at him and say, you've got one just like it. And you're puzzled and you're speechless, but somehow you say, Jesus, how come you have the same scars that I do? And he looks at you and he says, when they hurt you, it hurt me. When they broke your heart, it broke mine. When you felt the pain of that wound, carrying it every day, I suffered that with you. Your heart breaks from the comfort of knowing that there's a good God who's not only there with you, but when you didn't realize he's been there the entire time. Your eyes begin to well up with tears. You don't know if they're grief or sadness. Your heart goes and runs through those feelings. And as you look up and through your tear-soaked eyes, you see Jesus. And you say, but what about that scar? Or that one? I don't have those. What are those from? He pauses, takes a breath, he looks back at you and says, those scars are the price that I paid to forgive and to heal you. Those are the scars that were caused when you chose to do it your way instead of mine, when you chose to be God instead of me. And it hurt me too. But those wounds have been scarred, become scars. Because what I did was I found a way to get you out of this prison. He explains that on the cross, he paid for your sin. He paid the prison cell, or the prison term. He paid the penalty, and now you're able to go free. And in that cell, you're speechless, because the one standing before you has come with the keys to freedom, and he's paid the price so that you can walk free. You're overwhelmed with awe and humility and joy. Your heart starts to speed up as you walk out. You take your first step out of those bars and you start walking through those halls. And you've walked through those halls 1,000,000 times, on the way to the cafeteria, on the way to outside time, as the way to whatever you're supposed to do. But this is the first time where as you look and you walk by, you know that there's a bright light at the end. And because Jesus has paid the price, because Jesus has the keys, because of that, you can be free. But as you get to the end of the hallway, you realize that there's still folks who are sitting in jail, trapped in their cell and can't get out. And you look at them, and this time you see clearly, and you see that person that hurt you, neglected you, mistreated you. You look at that person, you look back at Jesus. Your heart, your head are confused, swirling with emotions. And Jesus slowly walks up to you, puts his hand out, and he offers you the key. You don't want to take it. You just want to keep walking. But in that moment, you put your hand out, and he places the key to that person's cell in your hand. And in that moment, you know. The only way I walk out of here with full freedom is by following Jesus, following the one who chose to forgive me. And there's no way I can follow Jesus in the forgiveness that he's given me if I still hold on to that key, if I still hold on to my bitterness, to my rage, to my revenge. And in that moment, it brings you to the moment where you are now, knowing first and foremost that Jesus has purchased your freedom, but for you to live a life of letting go, of following Jesus, you know what you have to do. You're afraid and you're scared because you know last time you let that person out, they hurt you. And there's this question. Do you believe that because Jesus is with you, the power of love, justice, and victory in him can protect you from whatever evil that person did or could do?